Now let's bring in former federal prosecutor Neama Rahmani. Neama, thanks for being with us as always tonight. The latest developments involving the former President Donald Trump have a lot of legal experts scratching their heads. Presidents, he says, have to have immunity, not only for what they might do, but also what they might have done. And that's according to his own social media post. And I should point out last night on these airwaves, his own former attorney said that doesn't make sense.
Well, Dale, it doesn't make sense, and that's why this is all a legal stretch. And the judges on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, they were rightfully poking holes into that argument. If you take Trump's argument the whole way, he can order the assassination of his political enemies or sell military secrets. And of course, that doesn't make any sense at all. But we know that this argument is not necessarily made for substantive reasons, even though there's a chance that the conservative Supreme Court entertains it, but really more for procedural ones, because Trump's best defense, of course, is to delay these cases until after the general election, because if he wins, all of his criminal problems go away.
If time is of the essence, court watchers were anticipating that the appeals court in Washington would issue their ruling this evening. Usually those rulings come out on Friday. It did not happen. Does the appeals court realize that there is a voting public out there that wants to know whether or not the former president is somebody who is guilty of a felony?
Well, they do, but the judges also want to get it right for two reasons. Obviously, we know that it's going to be appealed to the Supreme Court. The justices there don't have to hear it, but Trump is also going to petition for hearing en banc, which means that he's going to ask for the entire panel of judges in the D.C. Circuit to hear the case as well. And we're talking about an issue that really hasn't been litigated, and certainly not extensively, since Nixon. So there's not a whole lot of precedent here, but I do expect the judges to get it right. It may be a matter of weeks before they do and issue that opinion denying Trump presidential or executive immunity.
Neama, there's also the issue of calling out members of the Supreme Court, in this case, Brett Kavanaugh, reminding the justices that he put on the Supreme Court, that he put them there. Will that work?
I don't think it'll work, but it certainly doesn't hurt that 3 of those 9 justices were appointed by Donald Trump himself. That's why it's going to be a very favorable venue. Now, it may work for the 14th Amendment argument, and him being removed from the ballot in Colorado and the issues that have come up in Maine. I think he's going to win there. But I think on presidential immunity, it really is a bridge too far. I think the justices, even those appointed by Trump, are going to have concerns with a president saying that anything he's done while he was president, and even some of the events before he was president or after, are going to subject him to no civil or criminal liability. Judges like to maintain law and order, and I think even the conservative justices on the Supreme Court are going to do that.
Asking what would happen if he used SEAL Team 6 to take out his political opponent, would that be immune? And they argued that it might be. As I indicated, Neama, in the lead-in, the legal woes of the former president could wind up before the Supreme Court, and you indicated that they might. But the legal woes of Fulton County DA Fani Willis could wind up being a supreme embarrassment. Those allegations, as you heard James say, involve a messy divorce, a prosecutor she hired, and an expensive vacation. Does this threaten that RICO case against the former president and the others?
Del, it doesn't affect Trump's prosecution, but assuming the allegations are true, this is something that's extremely embarrassing and foolish by Fani Willis. You don't use public funds to hire your boyfriend to become a special prosecutor. It's a conflict of interest. It may be an ethics violation if she's receiving gifts. And you're handling the most politicized trial in American history, something we cover here on Scripps News every single night. You have to be more careful. You can't be sloppy like this. And again, it's a black eye for her in her office.
The DA has always seemed to be guarded about her past and her case. Is this a legal matter, or is it an affair of the heart because the judge has scheduled that hearing? But what will he need to see in order to move against the DA legally?
Well, there's really 2 cases here, Del, and you're right. Relationship between consenting adults, that's not unlawful. But let's not forget, Georgia has a fault-based system for divorce. You can file for fault or no fault, and one of those bases is adultery. So Nathan Wade's relationship with his ex is relevant in the divorce case. And of course, if Wade is being paid sums that he's not disclosing to his ex-wife, or he's giving gifts to folks outside the marriage, that's all relevant in the divorce case. The reason I don't think it's going to move the needle in Trump's case, though, is dismissal isn't warranted unless there's really some outrageous government conduct or there's selective prosecution for a constitutionally impermissible reason: race, religion, national origin. So again, even though this might be embarrassing, certainly something terrible from a public relations perspective, and maybe something that may be unethical from a gift or a conflict perspective, I don't think the entire Fulton County District Attorney's Office is going to be disqualified, or this case will have to be dismissed.
Neama, 30 seconds left, but we have now hit that moment where the former president's legal woes are butted up against his campaign. If the charges are criminal, will he have to be in court? Because just this week, the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, saying the Justice Department won't stop the court proceedings from going forward, even if they collide with the election.
Well, that's what the judges in the case have said as well. They need to move their trials. Now, of course, there's been stays in D.C., and of course, the South Florida case is moving slowly. In Atlanta, we don't have a trial date, but I don't expect judges to move anything just because there's a political campaign going on.
Be fascinating to see the balloons drop inside a federal courtroom. Neama Rahmani, thanks a lot for being with us tonight.
Thanks for having me, Del.
You got it.